I've had friends that are so strong. My brother was a strong person. I've had friends that were so strong, so powerful, they couldn't stay away from a glass of alcohol. They couldn't stay away from a drug. They had to have a drug. But you know the way that you solve the problem? Don't have them.
During a sit-down interview with Sean Hannity, Donald Trump shared some helpful advice for those struggling with addiction. In fact, he's completely solved it. Just say no. I mean, we've had other campaigns with the same message, kind of like the D.A.R.E campaign. There you have it. And it was a failure. But nonetheless, Trump is ripping a page out of the D.A.R.E handbook and saying, just say no to everything, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes. Let's watch more.
I say the way you stay away, just don't drink. Just don't have it. If you don't have drugs, if you don't experience early on, you're not gonna have a need for it. You're not gonna have an addiction. If you don't drink alcohol, you're not gonna have an addiction. You're not gonna have this insatiable urge to have a drink. And I say that to people, with your children. They ask me, what do you think of children? What do you tell them? I say, no drugs, no alcohol. I also say no cigarettes. Don't have the cigarettes. Don't have cigarettes. Don't have them. I have friends that can't stop smoking. If they never had a cigarette before, they'd have no problem. When I look at a friend that can't stop smoking, I don't understand why it's hard to stop. You know, the smoke all over the place. The fact is, if you never had a cigarette, I never had a cigarette. I have no urge to smoke. But if you are, you get addicted. It has something and you just can't stop.
I mean, that's kind of true though. The thing about the cigarettes, because you know, I grew up in the era where there was like a pretty hardcore campaign to inform the public about what cigarettes do to your body, what your lungs will look like. You know, there were the ads with people who like, you know, they had the hole in their throats and all that.
Truth commercials, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually was highly effective for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, because the rate of smoking went down considerably. And if you never start, you're never gonna be addicted to it. So he's right about that. The thing about the drinking though, is different. It's so different because, you know, smoking among your friends or social groups, that's frowned upon. Whereas being social oftentimes requires you to be around people who are drinking. And it feels awkward to be the person who's like, no, I'm not gonna drink, or what, you know what I mean? There's just like a lot more pressure in that area. So just simply telling people like, just don't do it, just say no, just don't drink. I don't know how effective that's gonna be necessarily.
So what I took away from this, honestly, is like, Trump's cultivated this image as this like bad boy, like he'll say the craziest things and he's like a renegade and all of this stuff. But like in this clip, this portion, he's exposing himself to be a gigantic square. Like this, the idea that this man doesn't drink or smoke or like he's basically straight edge, and he's telling these people like, yo, look, like put it down. Like why do you need? It's kind of hilarious that he's like anti-weed and anti-cigarette and anti-alcohol. It's quite funny, and it reminded me this weekend, our guy Danny Bessner on his podcast, like they had interviewed Noam Chomsky a few years ago, and I was listening to it while I worked out. And Chomsky's obviously been a radical since like literally the 1940s or some shit. And but the guy is completely against weed. It was cracking me up. Yes, he was like, yo, you know, we had all these ideas about how to liberate people, and then some of my cohort on the left thought that smoking reefer and free love, they thought that would liberate us. I don't know why he basically was like, that was stupid. Yeah, Chomsky's anti-weed.
I really wish you hadn't told me that. It's really depressing. It's really depressing.
But yeah, Trump is a square. It's funny to me. That's kind of hilarious, honestly.
I think what his brother went through and seeing that play out firsthand kind of traumatized him and scared him, and that's the reason why he allegedly doesn't use anything. I don't know if I buy that he doesn't use anything, especially given some of the reporting in regard to what was being prescribed during his administration. That was
like what, some like amphetamines?
Yeah, which I'm not. Look, I'm not shocked by, and I don't judge on that, because I can't, I mean, look, Trump's a little bit different. He had a lot of executive time where he was like resting and watching Fox News, but look, it's a demanding job to be president, and sometimes you need a little pep in your step, so it would not shock me if he was prescribed amphetamines. And this is based on some Rolling Stone reporting. Let's remember what that reporting was all about. During Trump's presidency, two sources say senior staffers would repeatedly down Xanax and alcohol. So there's no indication that this was Trump, but apparently prescription drugs were like free flowing during Trump's administration. Such a combination increases the risk of serious life-threatening side effects. Doesn't stop a lot of people from doing it on flights, by the way, but that is true. Nevertheless, senior officials would use Xanax and alcohol together to soothe themselves while enduring the sky-high levels of stress that come with working at the highest pressure environment job in America, with the added pleasure of serving the whims of the infamously volatile, intemperate Trump. One senior administration official also told Rolling Stone, "You try working for him and not chasing pills with alcohol." Jesus, how about no? I would rather not. but there was this like whole lengthy report complete with lots of quotes from people who were within Trump's administration in regard to how these prescription drugs were just being prescribed left and right. And are you gonna tell me that Biden doesn't partake in some help before a State of the Union address, let's say? Like, come on. I mean, I think it does happen. But that is different from addiction. And look, addiction really depends on whether someone is predisposed to addiction. And that's what really scares me, right? Some people just don't know that addiction they might have addiction in their family. They might, have a couple drinks, and before they know it, they're addicted to alcohol or other drugs as well. I'll give you another example. People who experiment with things like MDMA, and then they become addicted to that. Like, it could happen with any substance. It just really depends on whether or not an individual is predisposed to an addiction, which is why I think what Trump is saying there makes sense to an extent, but it doesn't really account for the social pressures that play a role in everyone's life when you're an adult, including the social drinking that seems like it's part of all of our lives, right? So.
Yeah, my advice to the people out there who are, somehow still considering whether they want to do a thing or not, just go with a glass of wine, right? And not the whole bottle, or maybe have like one mushroom cap and not the whole 8, like my buddy in college did.
Oh my God.
Before freaking the hell out and claiming that he was seeing gremlins. Yeah, just take it slow. That would be my. I'm not just say no. I'm take it slow. Take it slow, guys.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm in that camp as well, and try to see if you don't know already whether or not alcoholism or addiction is an issue in your family. And if it is, then you gotta be real cautious. But overall, I do agree with you. He does come across as a square, and it's a side of Trump we don't see too often. It's kind of nice, I guess. It's a little different.